Good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us and taking the time out of your evening to hear from the Citizens Utility Board, or CUB, as they're referred. Before I introduce tonight's speaker, I wanted to mention two of our upcoming programs that you might be interested in. Tonight, I'll host representatives from Bentron Financial on Can You Afford to Retire? We have lots of buzz going on about this event, mostly all from the presenter themselves. They're excellent promoters, so maybe you've seen it on social media. It should be a great program. That will be online, so you'll see me here on this very couch. You can register for the link that I will put in the chat right now. And then Monday afternoon at the library, we will host historian Leslie Goddard. I love her. She's an excellent presenter. She's going to do a lecture. She usually does sort of these theatrical performances, but she's going to lecture on the lost Chicago department store histories. And after her program, so her program starts at 1, after her program from 2 to 4, we will have a representative from the Illinois Treasury and their iCash program in our lobby. So Leslie's program starts at 1, it will finish at 2, and then you can walk out of that program and iCash will be on site. So if you have any lost money, you can find it at the library and put it towards your newly lowered utility bills. So I'm going to give you the, here's the link to register for Leslie's program. And here is the link for the iCash program, which you don't have to register for, and you don't actually have to attend Leslie's program. If you can't, they'll be there for a large chunk of the afternoon, but there's a little bit more information about that. So that's some great and upcoming very soon after this program, things that you can do at the library. So with that, I'd like to introduce our speaker. Kate is the Sustainable Communities Liaison for Citizens Utility Board, a nonprofit organization working to advocate for utility consumers. Kate is on the outreach team and helps host educational events and workshops throughout the year. Her main focus at CUB is helping shape income eligible and energy efficiency programs in the state of Illinois. So the Citizen Utility Board is a nonprofit, nonpartisan organization that advocates for Illinois utility consumers and works to promote clean and efficient energy. And that all sounds so wonderful. Kate, thank you so much for being here tonight. I will hand it over to you. Just so you know, I will be here behind the scenes. So if you have any technical issues or have any questions for me, I'm happy to just reappear. So you can start presenting now.
Great, thank you so much for the introduction. Happy to be here. I'll just quickly share my screen. Go. Is anyone having issues seeing this?
It looks great on my end, Kate.
Okay, awesome. So tonight I'm going to be talking a little bit about how to save some money on your utility bills, how to be more energy efficient, and just some general tips that we like to talk about at CUB. So yeah, my name is Kate. I'm the Sustainable Communities Liaison. And let's get started, I guess. So CUB is, like was said, a nonprofit, nonpartisan organization. We represent utility ratepayers, usually in front of the Illinois Commerce Commission, but also in court cases and with the General Assembly. We were formed in 1984, so we've been around for a little bit. Our mission is to help consumers sort of figure out their utility bills and also make sure that rates stay as low as they possibly can. We have a hotline, which is that number that's up on the screen. You can always call and ask any utility related questions that you have, or just file a case or something against your utility company. And we also have a website that has a lot of different information. We publish a lot of blogs and media. We also conduct a lot of consumer education with events like this one. We host around 500 events per year. I think last year it was around 400. And we also have a email that you can reach out to at any time to send your utility bills to or ask any questions, and we can sort of analyze your bills or give you any tips. So our general mission is just to advocate for affordable and sustainable energy policies. And this is just a little picture we like to show that sort of represents CUB and our mission. So today I'm first going to talk a little bit about how to analyze your bills, sort of how to decode them because they can be quite confusing. I'm going to talk about some utility scams to look out for, as well as some energy efficiency tips and programs that you can take part in. And then lastly, just go over some financial assistance programs and disconnection information. And even if you don't need financial assistance or aren't in danger of being disconnected, it's always just good to know, to share with people, share with your neighbors, just good information to have. So to start, let's go over some bills. So first I'm going to go over a ComEd bill, which is your electricity. And the basic parts of a ComEd bill show the total usage, the supply, the delivery of the energy, and then there's also taxes and fees, and there are also updates on the bill. This is an example of a ComEd bill. This is from last year around the same time. And the first thing that we always like to point out is the total usage graph. This shows you how many kilowatt hours you're using. And it's just good to look to know how many kilowatt hours you're using, to know, sort of your trends, when you use more, when you use less. So typically most houses are heated with gas and cooled with electricity. So we would like to see a higher spike in the summer, if that's the case, because then you're using more electricity to cool your home. And then we like to see sort of a drop off in the winter. And that's the trend that we see in this example. Another big part is who supplies your energy. So for this bill, it says right under that supply section, ComEd provides your energy. And if you were on an alternative supplier, which if people don't know, you can choose who supplies your energy in Illinois. So you could sign up with some alternative supplier instead of ComEd. ComEd is the default, the regulated utility, but you could sign up with another supplier. Typically at CUB, we don't recommend that, and I'll get more into that later. But if you were on an alternative supplier, that's where it would say the company that you're on and who you can call to get more information or to cancel the alternative supplier. And then there's also the delivery section right there. And another thing I like to point out is that little blue section under the average daily use, and it shows the temperature from last year. That's also good to look at if your usage is higher or lower compared to the year before. That also might explain if there's been a temperature difference. This is the backside of a ComEd bill. You always want to check the price to compare. So this is from last year. The price to compare at the time was 11 cents per kilowatt hour. Right now, it's around 9 cents per kilowatt hour. So this is the price that you would compare to alternative suppliers if you were looking to go on an alternative supplier, or if you're already on one and want to get off. You can see the price that you're paying compared to the regulated utility rate right there. Some other things we like to point out on this side of the bill is the actual part up here. It says previous, present. Under that has a number, and then actual. You want to make sure that it says that your meter is an actual reading instead of an estimated. If they are estimating your bill, then the charges could pile up if what you're using is actually over what they're estimating. So it's usually good just to check and make sure that that is an actual reading of your meter. Just some other things to point out. There's the delivery costs. as well as the taxes and fees. A lot of these we can't really change. They're line items that get decided with, the Illinois Commerce Commission and other parties. But CUB does try to fight a lot of these extra charges. The supply portion is what we do have the most control over, just how much electricity we use and then who your supplier is. And then next, I want to go over some basic parts of a NICOR bill. NICOR is similar to ComEd. They have the total usage shown, the supply and who's supplying your energy, the delivery fees, as well as the taxes and other fees, and then updates as well. So this is a bill back from December 2 years ago in 2021. And it still looks the same. This bill, the first thing that we like to point out on the gas bills is just how much you're paying. So if you look under the natural gas cost, that'll have the therms that you used per month. So this bill is going from December to January. So it'll calculate how much you use in each month because gas prices change every month, whereas electricity costs change twice a year. So that's why there's the December charge and then the January charge. And at this time it was 68 cents per therm and then 61 in January. I think right now it's closer to 50, but I didn't check before this, so I'm not entirely sure. But that's where you would see the price currently, and that's also the price to compare. So if you were to go on a different supplier, you would check to see what that price is in the moment to see if you would be saving any money. Another thing we like to point out is the usage graph. So again, that shows how much you're using, if you're using more compared to last year or less compared to last year. And again, if you are heating your home with gas, then we would expect to see an increase in the winter months and a decrease in the summer months, just like is on this bill. And then the last thing we like to point out is under the message, a message for you. This is where it would say if you were on an alternative gas supplier, it would talk about what company it is and what number you can call to cancel. And then it just gives you any other updates that are relevant. And next, I'm going to go over more about alternative suppliers and different scams that they typically use. This picture on the screen is an example. I think one of my colleagues actually received this in the mail, and it's from an alternative supplier offering a $100 Visa gift card if you sign up with them. And typically this really entices people, if they are falling behind on their bills or, who wouldn't want $100. But a lot of the time their prices are higher, or they end up sort of raising rates after you sign up with them. And there's a lot of different reasons why we don't typically recommend them. So that is just one thing to look out for, and I'll talk about a few others. So at CUB and sort of in the energy world, the alternative suppliers are referred to as ARES, which is Alternative Retail Electric Supplier, or ARGS, which is the Alternative Retail Gas Supplier. So the regulated utility companies like ComEd and NICOR, their prices are determined within the Illinois Commerce Commission, and with a lot of different, voices that get to determine those prices. And they also cannot profit off of the actual supply of energy itself. So usually you're going to get the lowest rate from being with ComEd or NICOR or whoever your regulated utility is in your area. Alternative suppliers, they can profit off of what they're charging you for supply. So usually it's going to be more, or they use different tactics, like they'll sign you up for a certain rate and then it'll change after a couple months or so. So this is just an example of a ComEd bill with an alternative supplier. This is one company called Clean Choice Energy. They were previously Ethical Electric. The ComEd supply at this time was 7.29 cents per kilowatt hour. The Clean Choice supply was 13.4 cents per kilowatt hour. So they were profiting quite a bit, and you're paying a lot more. So we at Cub, we just want to make sure that people are paying the lowest rate that they possibly can. And we just advise people to exercise caution with alternative suppliers. So just some key summary points on utility scams. The IPA is in charge of the default utility. And that rate is called the price to compare. You compare it to different suppliers. And there's also something called a municipal aggregation, where your city can sign a contract with an alternative supplier on behalf of their residents. And you're usually automatically signed up unless you opt out. There are a few cities like this in Illinois where the city signs you on to an alternative supplier. Sometimes, most of the time it's going to be a lower rate, but sometimes they sign on to like 4-year contracts and they don't really know what the rate is going to be years from that time. So you just want to make sure that you know the price to compare with the default utility, and you can always opt out if your city does have a municipal aggregation. And you can always check the price to compare on the Plugin Illinois website or Cub's website. Alternative suppliers can also not charge termination fees. So that's good to keep in mind if they threaten that, if you are on an alternative supplier. And once you cancel, it can take a couple of billing cycles. And this is just some consumer protections, mostly around alternative suppliers as well, just to be aware of. That alternative suppliers are not allowed to solicitate inside multiple unit buildings. In 2020, the HEAT Act was passed, which also put in a lot of consumer protections. And there's a lot on the screen, but mostly they can't automatically renew you if you have a fixed rate to a variable rate, which is a rate that just changes. You can't have a termination fee, like I said on the last slide. Also, LIHEAP customers cannot be signed up with an alternative electric supplier if the rate is higher than the price to compare. And LIHEAP customers are just people who are receiving heat assistance from the state. And there are different enforcements with the Illinois Commerce Commission and Attorney General. And they also have instated more rigorous training for alternative supplier sales reps as well. So next, I'm going to talk about some energy efficiency and what you can sort of do in your home to save on your bill if you are on ComEd or Nightcore and not on an alternative supplier and are looking for ways to sort of lower your bill. So just some general home energy savings tips. We always say the cheapest kilowatt hour or therm is the one that you don't use. So you always want to find ways to just cut down on your usage in general. And your 15% of your electric bill is from lighting. So those tips that we've heard our whole lives to turn lights off when they're not in use, that actually does make a difference. And same thing with vampire power. 23% of your power consumption in your house is from things just being plugged into the wall that aren't in use. So you always want to make sure to unplug things when you're not using them, even if they're off, even if you just have a phone charger plugged into the wall, it's still drawing electricity. So you want to make sure to unplug things. Now we also have smart power strips that you can purchase that will turn everything off when they're not in use. So that can be useful for some people as well. And then I'm also going to talk about some demand response programs. And that is just sort of you responding to how much sort of pressure there is on the grid at the time. And these programs are offered through the utilities. And then I also just have a little graphic that talks about different things you can do to be more energy efficient. You can replace your doors and windows and upgrade to newer models, as well as upgrading your appliances if they're super outdated, or if you have, a second fridge in your basement that you could get rid of, things like that. Sealing your floorboards, switching to LED lights, and sealing your attic and adding insulation in your home can also make a big difference. And then some different ComEd energy efficiency programs offered for homeowners and renters. These are just a few different programs that you can access. One is called IWAP, and this is free weatherization. And you have to be below 200% of the federal poverty level. For that program, there's also the ComEd single family income eligible energy efficiency program. And that again is free weatherization for your home. There's similar programs for renters. And then another program we always talk about is called the Home Energy Assessment. And that is offered through ComEd or NICOR. It's basically offered by like all of the big utility companies. And through that program, a energy advisor will do a walkthrough of your home, and they will determine ways that you can be more efficient, whether it's, sealing your windows and things like that. They also provide some free products like LED light bulbs, energy efficient shower heads, some hot water pipe insulation, things like that. So that's always a good program to take advantage of. And it's called the Home Energy Assessment. You can find it on the ComEd website or the NICOR website. And then next, I'm going to talk about demand response programs. So this is what I mentioned before. They're programs that are through the utility companies, and they give you the option to sort of respond to when there's a lot of pressure on your electric grid, and sort of what you can do to save some energy and money. The first one is called Central AC Cycling. So through this program, if you enroll, someone from ComEd will come out and put a device on your air conditioner that it cycles off the compressor of your air conditioner during peak times. And there's a lot of pressure on the grid in the summer. Most people don't notice a difference. We've talked to people who are part of this program and they don't even notice when it turns the compressor off. The temperature never changes more than a few degrees, and you can earn up to $40 in credits during the spring, summer months. And there are two options, and they exclude weekends and holidays. So this is just a sort of introduction to demand response programs, and there's no real loss from it. And it's just a good program to get started if you're interested. This program is hourly pricing. It's a little bit more complicated and there is a little bit more of a risk to it. For the last program, Central AC Cycling, you can't really lose anything. You're never going to pay more than you were before. Hourly pricing, however, there is a potential for you to possibly end up paying more than you are, but most people do see savings. So most of us are on the regulated utility rate for electricity. So we pay, 7 cents per kilowatt hour or whatever the price to compare is at the time. But our energy rate actually changes every hour. And so you can either pay the regulated rate, whatever it is, or you can pay, by the hour what the energy price actually is. So with this program, you would be trying to use less energy during the peak times on the grid. And I'll show sort of a graph of what that means. It's particularly beneficial for people who just use a lot of electricity. So if you heat your home with electricity, if you own an electric vehicle, and if you're able to just shift your usage to the off-peak times, then that's really ideal. And so with hourly pricing, if you decide to be on it, you would look at these graphs that are provided on the ComEd website and see what the price is going to be. It shows like the predicted price. It's not 100%, but it'll show you the predicted prices for the day. And then you decide when you're going to use energy, like, run your dishwasher or do your laundry or charge your EV or whatever it may be. Typically the peak times are in the middle of the day, sort of when people get off of work. And just as you would expect, the off-peak times are when people are sleeping, when lights are turned off, that sort of thing. So on this program, you would try to use more energy during the off-peak times. So like run your dishwasher when you're sleeping, or charge your electric vehicle at night or something like that. So this is just an example of one day. This was September in 2022. So most of the times are lower than the default rate. That's what the green is. And then those orange ones are higher than what the default rate is. And then I'll show another example. This is another day, and that just shows you the day ahead prices in gray. Shows you what they expect the prices to be, so you can sort of plan ahead. If you see the prices are going to be high the next day, then just plan to use less energy. And then as you can see, before that gray time, a lot of the prices were lower than what the default rate is. So you would see like a decent amount of savings if you were on this program and using energy during those off-peak times. But we just sort of advise people to exercise some caution with this program. If you're not paying attention to the times, to the prices at the time, and you're using a lot of energy, then your bill could be a lot more. But I know on average, most people do save with hourly pricing. You just sort of have to be on top of checking the prices. The next demand response program that I'm going to talk about is called Peak Time Savings. And this is a program that pretty much I think everyone should be on. So if you're on this program, your utility company will alert you when there are times of high usage on the grid. And if you just lower your usage during that time, you'll receive a credit on your bill. And typically, this says 1 to 2 events. That was last summer, but before that, I think they would usually call 4 events during the summer. And anyone is eligible. You can just sign up, and there's no risk to this program. In a different way that there is some risk to hourly pricing. With this, say you use more energy during that high peak time, you don't get penalized or anything. But if you just happen to use less, then you see some savings. I personally am on this program, and I don't really change much about my usage when I get the alert on my phone that there's an event, and I always see a little bit of savings on my bill. So it's just a good one to enroll in. There's no risk. And then I'm going to talk about some financial assistance programs and some sort of laws around disconnections. So the first program we always like to plug is called the Low Income Home Energy Assistance Program, or LIHEAP. So if you apply for this, this is a payment that goes directly to your utility company. You have to be at or below 200% of the federal poverty level in order to be eligible. And you have to show your income, and you apply from September 1st to May 31st every year. That's when the enrollment period is open. This year, they think that funds may possibly run out before May 31st, but not completely sure. So if you are eligible, it's always good just to apply and see if you can get some assistance for your bills. Another program is IWAP, which I mentioned in one of the other slides, and that provides customers with weatherization services for their homes. And the same, you have to be at or below 200% of the federal poverty level, and you can apply at any time until funding runs out. The last one is called PIP, or Percentage of Income Payment Plan. PIP is currently closed, so I want to focus too much on this, but it is sort of a payment arrangement. You pay payments that are a percentage of your income, but the application is closed. The program is full right now. Disconnections. There's a lot of different rules here. I think a lot of people think that you can't get disconnected in the winter at all, and that's not necessarily true. You are not allowed to be disconnected when it's below 32 degrees, or it's going to be below 32 degrees for the next 24 hours. And similarly, you can't be disconnected when it's above 95 degrees or expected to be above 95 degrees for the next 24 hours. They also cannot disconnect LIHEAP accounts, which is that heat assistance program. And you cannot be disconnected from your electricity if you have electric heat from December 1st to March 31st. So there's a lot of different rules and things, but you can always check our website for more specifics or call our hotline if you are in danger of being disconnected. Disconnections are allowed if a customer fails to pay an entire past due bill or a security deposit. They have to send you a warning. It's also allowed if you default on a DPA, which is a deferred payment arrangement that you have with the utility, or if you deny them access to read your meter. There's no warning required if there's no customer on record, if you've been tampering with your meter, or if there's something like a gas leak and they have to disconnect to fix that. Just check the question. I see a question here saying, I am on budget billing, which is supposed to monitor usage from previous years and charge rates that allow the customer to maintain a budget. I was told by a CSR from ComEd that I am paying a higher rate for electricity to be on budget. Can you confirm? So I didn't mention budget billing, but that is a good thing to talk about. So budget billing is something that you pay just the same amount every month. And it is supposed to even out your bill, like you said. So instead of paying a lot more in the winter for heat, and paying for gas a lot more in the winter, a lot less in the summer, having sort of different bill amounts every month, you pay the same amount, and it's supposed to even out, and you just sort of know what you're paying every month. So the reason why that person from ComEd told you that is because, so for example, if you in the summer are paying more for gas because of your budget billing, if you're paying, say your budget bill is $100 every single month, in the summer you would probably be paying less than that if you weren't on budget billing, but it evens out the whole year round. So in the winter you're paying less on budget billing than you would be, but it's evening out. Like for me, example, I am on budget billing for my electric bill, just to know, this is how much money I'm budgeting for my utility. And technically I would be paying more in the winter for electricity than if I weren't on the budget billing plan. but then I'm paying less in the summer because it all sort of evens out. So total, you're not paying a higher amount. But at that given time, so like in the winter, you're probably paying a little bit more than you would be. But it's all in the name of paying the same amount, so it all evens out. It's just sort of spreading out the payments, if that makes sense. And I can talk, if that wasn't clear, I can sort of go over that again, or if people have questions about any other of the programs that are available to you. But this is just more about CUB. If you want to join and get our emails or anything, you can visit citizensutilityboard.org. We have lots of different resources. There are tons of blogs you can read, tons of fact sheets. We just came out with a lot of information on the Inflation Reduction Act. If you want information on the rebates that you can take advantage of. And we have lots of information on clean energy legislation. And we also have our hotline that you can always reach out to. But that is all I have, unless there are more questions.
Thanks, Kate. This is good. There were a couple comments. Somebody was asking or mentioning, besides multi-unit buildings, door-to-door solicitation should be discouraged in communities as well. Yeah, I know that a lot of like homeowners associations have that as part of their rules, that they don't like people soliciting, door-to-door soliciting. And then we had a viewer that said that they signed up for peak time savings,
Awesome.
even as you were just talking. Rachel asks or mentions that her January bill spiked much higher than the cost in December. Do you have any idea why that might be?
Yeah, so it could just be from higher usage, from, if it's your gas bill, it could just be from heating more, from colder temperatures. If it's significant, though, you could send your bill to us, and we can sort of look at it and see if there's anything weird on the bill, if the meter wasn't read correctly. You can always call your utility and ask about it. I don't know if I had that email address up, but you can always send the bill, just a scan of the bill, to ubc@citizensutilityboard.org, or just call our hotline and ask about that as well.
And peak hours at the same time the entire year. Yeah, that's kind of, maybe you understand what that means.
So the regular peak hours, that's a good question. Typically the peak hours are, more in the summer because people are using more electricity to cool their homes. And typically there's going to be a higher peak, right sort of at 5 p.m. when people typically get off of work, and then during the day, maybe from like noon to 5 is when the peak time usually is. But in the winter, the prices are usually lower just because there's less pressure on the grid from people not having to cool their homes. And then someone asked about Christmas lights. Yeah, that's something we see too. I look at people's bills sometimes and there's this spike in December and I'm like, that's gotta be from Christmas lights.
I was gonna ask you, that was gonna be a question that I was gonna offer to the group. Are there any, you mentioned the phantom electricity.
Yeah.
Are there any sort of like repeat offenders, like, oh, if you have a old toaster, unplug that toaster, or things that people should be unplugged that they don't think to?
Yeah, we see a lot of second refrigerators like in the basement, and that takes up a lot of energy because typically it's a really old refrigerator that's really inefficient. and I don't want to take away anyone's extra fridge space, but it does.
This is Chicagoland. We all have one of those.
I know it's like it does take up a lot of energy. So that's a big one. Sometimes we see people just have like a dehumidifier plugged in their basement, random things like that actually do suck up a lot of energy. But yeah, the switching to the LED lights for Christmas lights is a little bit better too.
Or even just the energy efficient like options that are out
Yeah.
there, when you're buying new things to really kind of pay attention. Is all Energy Star created equal? Like, is there better than some items?
Yeah, I'm not totally sure about that question. I've never been asked that actually. So I'm not sure, but usually any efficient model, newer model is going to be better than
The
something.
most efficient. Somebody's asking to talk a little bit about solar energy. I'm not sure if they mean like the bills or yeah, having those be part of your kind of system at home or
Yeah, so there's a lot to say about solar. If you have a specific question, you can always call our hotline because we have a solar expert on staff. But we love solar at Cub. Usually, if you install solar on your panels, you would see savings then on your electric bill, and those credits would be applied. There's also community solar as an option where you have a subscription to a solar farm if you don't want to put solar panels on your roof, or if you are a renter or something. And we have a lot of information on that on our website. Yeah, there's a lot to say about solar, but we do have a lot of information on our website, and you can always call our hotline.
Somebody is writing that in all of 2021, my actual gas reading was under 1,000. Since 2022, it has steadily increased to 2,082 in January of 2023. What would cause this? The reading.
Yeah, that's interesting. There are a lot of things that could cause that. There's a lot. If you haven't replaced like the filter on your furnace, or you're just using, or your insulation is really poor, or maybe, yeah, it's hard to say without actually, being in someone's home and doing a walkthrough, which is why we recommend that home energy assessment through ComEd and NICOR, because they can, if you brought up that issue, they would probably be able to see what the problem is. So yeah, that is definitely a huge spike. If you have other people living in your home, more people sometimes, taking more showers, heating more water, cooking more if you have a gas stove. Yeah, it's hard to say, but there are a lot of things that could maybe contribute.
Those are all good ones. Those could very much contribute. You said, yeah, that the gas supplier was not willing to do anything.
Yeah, you should give our hotline a call, because basically what we do, if someone calls about something like that, then we send an inquiry to the utility company, and they basically have to answer us.
You're like the advocate. Well, that's great.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, so you can always call our hotline, and we will make them answer, basically.
Very good. So you mentioned the solar programs. That one's kind of tricky because you mentioned that it's sort of the same process, right? That are these, like, you call them scams, where it ends up being a higher rate, but you get the gift card. Like, it's the same sort of process, right? It's like one of them can be not a scam, and another one of them is actually a scam. But through your bill and through ComEd, it's the same process to sign up for any of those things, right?
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, because there are actually some alternative suppliers who also
You would be
have, like,
considering them a scam. Oh,
yeah, and they also, you know, have like community solar subscriptions that actually aren't a scam and are, you know,
no.
it is really hard to navigate. And again, I keep plugging our hotline, but you can always call and we know the difference. You know, if you're looking at a certain community solar subscription or looking into solar, we can help you navigate that decision and know if it's, you know, a scam or if there are consumer protections involved. And we also sit in on a lot of these meetings and shape the consumer protections that are out there for these programs. So we can always help you sort of navigate that more one-on-one.
All right, that's wonderful. Call the hotline, check the website, sign up for the newsletter. I'm subscribed to the newsletter and I love that you report about all the work that you're doing. I think that's really good for you guys. Good work.
Thank you. Yeah, I see another question. What is the standard charge for electricity for ComEd in Lake County? So the standard charge changes twice a year in ComEd territory, which includes Lake County. It includes Chicago, sort of northern Illinois in general. So right now, the rate we have, I think, goes from October until May. So you'll see a different charge come, I think, June. But you can always, again, look at our website and see. We have different flyers on what the current price is and when that changes. So it's always going to be different at least twice a year. But gas, on the other hand, changes every month. Is there a way to get reduced price solar on my rental that is rented by low income Section 8? Yes, there is actually. There's a program that we work on. It's called Illinois Solar for All. And that is a program for income eligible people who are interested in solar. So there's two parts to the program. There's one that is residential solar, which is if you own the property and you want to get solar panels on your roof. And then there's also income eligible community solar, where you don't pay for the subscription to solar, you just see the savings on your bill. So again, you can go to our website and we have information. Again, it's called Illinois Solar for All. There's a website on Illinois Solar for All just itself that you can look into. You can call our hotline and get someone to answer questions. But the administrator of that program, the organization is called Elevate too, if you're interested in looking at their information. But we help administer that program as well.
All right, unless there's any other questions, we can say thank you and good night to Kate. Thank you, Kate. Thank you, Cub, for all the great work that you're doing. We really appreciate it. And we're all going to go and call that hotline. I think we all have a reason to call. So thank you and look out for the recording and everyone have a great night.
Yeah, thank you so
Bye-bye.
much for having me.
Bye.